Yo, what's up guys, Alf here, and today I'm going to be doing a full in-depth deck breakdown of a deck that I've recently used to get top 5 with on the arena ladder. Now before I get into it, there's going to be a Scryfall link down in the description, and if you click on that it'll have the deck list in full that you can just easily import into arena if you want to try the deck out for yourself. As in the previous video, I'm not going to read the text on every individual card, so if you don't know what any of the cards do, just quickly pause the video, fire up the Scryfall link and have a quick read of any of the cards that you're unfamiliar with. So with that out of the way, this is my Jund Citadel list in Historic. This is one of my all-time favourite decks to play in Historic. I absolutely love it. And what this deck is it's basically a sacrifice deck with a combo finish. Now this is a really nice pairing because traditionally sacrifice decks are very good against creature decks because they have good ways to kill creatures, they have good ways to produce chump blockers and generally good way to gain life as well. And they typically have good card advantage engines which allows them to outgrind control and mid-range decks as well. However, traditionally the biggest weakness of sacrifice decks is that they're not very good against combo decks or decks that go way over the top of them. So the fact that we can run our own combo in this deck, that we can ramp into as early as turn 3, really helps to shore up those bad combo matchups that traditionally sacrifice decks aren't very good against. Additionally, it also gives us an edge against other decks that are struggling against combo. So with the increase of popularity of the Jund Food and Golgari Food decks, which are the other sacrifice decks in the format right now, the fact that we're running a combo in our sacrifice deck gives us, we have all the advantages of the sacrifice shell that we're good against creature decks, but because we're running our own combo as well, that gives us an edge against other sacrifice decks because traditionally that's where they struggle the most as well. So between sacrifice and combo, it gives us strength against so much of the format and also makes it quite difficult for the opponent to interact with us because the sacrifice shell and the combo itself both require quite different answers. So it's difficult for the opponent to shut down both halves of the deck basically. So we'll start off by having a look at the combo. So the card that allows us to combo off in this deck is Bolas's Citadel. So this is a 6-mana artifact that we can ramp into as early as turn 3. And the way the combo works is we basically get this into play a bunch of stuff off the top of our library until we have 10 non-land permanents in play, including a Mayhem Devil. Now it's important to note that these 10 non-land permanents include food tokens off Gilded Goose and treasures that we get off Innkeeper and Shambling Ghast, so it's not as difficult to set that up as you might think. Once we have our 10 non-land permanents alongside Mayhem Devil, we can activate the Citadel's activated ability, sacrifice the 10 non-land permanents, which causes the opponent to lose 10 life, and because we sack the 10 non-land permanents, we also get 10 Mayhem Devil triggers, which we can use to direct straight at the opponent's life total, which is 20 damage all in one go. Now if the opponent has above 20 life, we can use one of our sacrifice enablers alongside the Mayhem Devil just to get the opponent down to 20 before we activate the Citadel. Or additionally, we can just keep comboing off until we have multiple Mayhem Devils in play, and then we can deal, 30, 40 or 50 damage all in one go. So that's how the combo works. One of the other, it doesn't always set up that easily though, and there are a couple of ways that we can brick with the combo. The first of which is running out of life total. Obviously to play stuff off the top with Citadel we have to pay life. So if we run out of life we obviously can't do that. So we have a couple of ways to counteract that. The main is Prosperous Innkeeper. So once this is in play, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control we gain a life, which basically reduces the cost of all the cards we play off the Citadel by 1. And in the case of something like Callous Bloodmage or Woe Strider that also put a creature token into play, it reduces the cost of those cards by 2. So having Innkeeper in play basically means that we don't have to worry as much about running out of life, and if we can get multiple of these in play we don't have to worry about that at all basically, which is really nice. We also have food tokens that we can produce off Gilded Goose, which gain us 3 life whenever we sacrifice them, which in conjunction with Citadel is actually quite a lot. So if we have food tokens lying around and spare mana, we can just sacrifice the tokens to gain life to enable us to play more stuff off the Citadel. And additionally, kind of a small thing, but the 1/1 token that we can create off Callous Blood Mage also gains us a life back. So if we have Blood Mage alongside Strider, we can sacrifice the 1/1 to gain us an extra life, which in some spots can be the difference between playing an extra card or two off the Citadel, which is nice. This second way that we can brick when comboing off with Bolus's Citadel is by having lands on the top that we can't play. Now obviously we can play lands off the Citadel, but we can't play more than one land each turn. So if we play a land in order to cast the Citadel, and the top card of our library is a land, we obviously can't combo off, and if we hit multiple lands in a row, we obviously can't combo off then either. But again, we do have multiple ways to counteract that. Most important of which here is Woe Strider. So Woe Strider allows us to sacrifice another creature to scry one. So if we have a land on top of our library that we can't cast, we can just activate the Strider's ability to scry that land to the bottom, and then keep putting more creatures into play. When we hit our next land, we can just activate Strider again to scry that card to the bottom. We also have Priest of Forgotten Gods, which allows us to draw a card when we activate it. So if we're comboing off and we hit a land that we can't play, we can just activate the Priest to draw that land into our hand. And additionally, Callous Blood Mage, if we cast a Blood Mage off the top of our library with Citadel, and we see that the next card is a land, we can just choose to draw a card and lose a life, and then we put that land into our hand, which hopefully just allows us to keep comboing off. So as you can see, the deck is kind of built to maximise our chances of us comboing off the turn that we play Citadel, and the two most important cards to enable us to combo off most consistently are Prosperous Innkeeper and Strider. So if you're sacrificing creatures to try and set up to play Citadel, these are the two creatures that we want to try and keep in play as often as possible when we're comboing off. But having said that, we don't need to combo off to gain value off the Citadel. It is such a powerful card that even just putting 2, 3 or 4 things in play off the Citadel without winning that turn is still often, you know, good enough advantage for us to win the game from that point. So that's the combo side of the deck. The other thing that I absolutely love about this deck is that the sacrifice and the combo game plan work so well together, and most cards in the deck work really well for both game plans, so you don't end up with this problem that a lot of decks have where it's a combo and another game plan, where you sometimes get stuck with hands that are like half the combo and half the other game plan, because like I said, basically every card in the deck works really well for both, which enables us to seamlessly switch between both game plans. So what I'm going to do now is just go through all of the individual cards in the deck and explain how they work within both the Sacrifice and the Citadel game plan. So starting off with Shambling Ghast, both death triggers are really nice here. The ability to give a creature -1/-1 when it dies is really nice in conjunction with Priest of Forgotten Gods, because we can, if the opponent has like a 1/1 and a big creature, we can activate the Priest, sacrificing the Shambling Ghast, then kill off the small creature with the Ghast and force them to sacrifice their big creature. It also makes combat quite difficult for the opponent, because they can't attack in with any creature that would have 1 toughness remaining after combat, because we can just use the Shambling Ghast to pick it off. And the ability to create a treasure token is really nice at both being able to ramp into Company and Citadel, which are the most important cards in the deck. And also just having the treasure lying around is really important later in the game, because it gives us additional Mayhem Devil triggers for free when we need them, and also it just enables us to cast multiple spells in a turn. It's very nice with Priest of Forgotten Gods, because if we activate it, we produce double black, and having that extra treasure around allows us to play our 3 drops, which means that the black mana doesn't get wasted when we activate it. We're only running 2 copies of this, because one of the problems of the deck is that if the opponent has a lot of interaction and it lines up well against the more expensive cards in the deck, we can often be left in situations where we have just Shambling Ghasts and Mana Dorks and we're not really doing anything at that point, and that sort of relies us on like drawing good cards off the top of our deck to be able to get out of that. On the flip side, the deck is very explosive, and we want to run a lot of 1 mana cards to enable the explosivity of the deck, so I feel like 10 1-drops is a good amount. I feel like running more than 2 copies of Shambling Ghast, you run into that problem where you can end up with just situations where you have a bunch of 1 mana cards and not much else going on. But from my experience, 10 1 mana cards has been a really good balance between the two for this deck. Then we've got 4 copies of Gilded Goose and 4 copies of Llanowar Elves. Best ramp cards in the format of the 1-drop slot. Absolutely fantastic at being able to play our 3 drops on turn 2. Also ramping into Company and Citadel, which, like I've said, are the most two powerful cards in the deck. Gilded Goose has a lot of nice synergy with the sacrifice parts of the deck. Well, I mean, first of all, it enables us to fix our mana, which is nice considering we're a 3-colour deck. But the food tokens as well, when we sacrifice them, they give us Mayhem Devil triggers, and they also gain us life, which is very relevant at both stabilising against the aggro decks, and also keeping us at a high life total so that we can go off with Citadel more easily as well. And it also gives us something we can do with our mana later in the game. You know, producing food tokens with Gilded Goose is always useful in this deck. And then additionally, Llanowar Elves doesn't really have any specific synergy with the sacrifice shell, but it does enable us to play all of our powerful sacrifice payoffs, you know. Enables us to play our 3-drops on turn 2, and ramping into these is always nice. And the obvious advantage of Llanowar Elves over Gilded Goose is that it always produces mana. You know, we can only ramp with Gilded Goose while we have food tokens, whereas Llanowar Elves is just a consistent mana production. The other nice thing about running 4 of each in this deck, you know, typically the big weakness of mana dorks is their very bad draws later in the game. Most decks don't really have a good way to utilise them. However, since we're running Sacrifice Shell, we always want creatures to sacrifice for the Priest of Forgotten Gods and the Woe Strider. So Gilded Goose and Llanowar Elves, while they're not the best top decks later in the game, because we're running sacrifice stuff, we always have a use for them, you know, even if we draw them late or hit them off Collected Company, which is nice. Then we've got 4 copies of Priest of Forgotten Gods, one of the most important cards in the deck. Absolutely fantastic against creature decks because it can pick apart the opponent's board. It's especially good in conjunction with Shambling Ghast or Mayhem Devil. You know, if we have Priest with Mayhem Devil, we can activate Priest, sack 2 creatures, and then ping off, you know, a bunch of Mayhem Devil triggers to kill their smaller creatures, and then force them to sacrifice their big, more powerful threats with the Priest of Forgotten Gods. The ability to make the opponent lose 2 life really adds up. You know, one of the biggest advantages of running a sacrifice deck is that it has great reach in the late game, and what I mean by that is that it can deal a lot of direct damage to the opponent without needing to connect in combat. So between priest activations and devil triggers and just attacks through the course of a game, we can chip away at the opponent's life total and just deal them lethal damage just off Mayhem Devil triggers and priest activations, which is really nice. The ability to draw a card is just a nice card advantage, but the ability to produce double black mana off this is incredibly powerful in conjunction with both Collected Company and Bolas's Citadel. So Priest in conjunction with Mana Dorks enables us to play Bolas's Citadel on turn 3 without even needing to play a land. So if we go turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 Priest, plus another Llanowar Elves or Gilded Goose, we have access to 6 mana on turn 3 between the Mana Dork activations and the Priest activations, which means that we can pretty consistently, with that setup, combo off on turn 3, which is so powerful. And then just in general, the ability to play multiple spells in a turn when we activate the Priest off that double black mana is really nice. Then we've got Prosperous Innkeeper. Like I mentioned earlier, absolutely fantastic when we're comboing off with Citadel to just make sure that we don't run out of life. The life generation of this is fantastic at just staying alive against the aggressive decks while we build up our board, while we set up our mana ramp so that we can hit our Citadel. And the ability for this to create a treasure is just fantastic ramp as well. It allows us to play Collected Company on turn 3 and also enables us to ramp into Citadel, where it's then great at keeping our life total high when we're comboing off as well. So Innkeeper, absolutely fantastic card in the Citadel shell. Then we've got 4 copies of Callous Blood Mage. So this is a card that has 3 different modes, and all 3 of them are really important in this deck. So first of all, the ability to create a 1/1 is very nice in conjunction with Priest of Forgotten Gods. You know, if we don't have a 1 mana play, or, you know, say we play a 1 mana play and the opponent kills it, and then we play Priest on turn 2, we can play Callous Blood Mage on turn 3 and then create a 1/1, which then enables us to activate Priest immediately, which is really useful against a lot of the creature decks. Even if we don't need to put the 1/1 in play to activate Priest, it's often nice to just do it anyway so that we have more bodies on the battlefield to activate Priest the following turn. And just against aggro decks, being able to put 2 chump blockers into play, one of which gains us a life, is really nice. Secondly, the ability is also very nice with the Citadel. You know, if we don't need to draw a card to get a land off the top, it just puts an additional body in play which we can use to sacrifice to the Strider to get extra scries to put lands to the bottom. Another one of its abilities is to exile target player's graveyard, which is absolutely fantastic in the current metagame. Just a flexible way to give us graveyard hate if we need in the main deck is so good. You know, a lot of decks in the meta right now are abusing their graveyard, whether it's the Cat Oven decks, whether it's Arclight Phoenix decks, whether it's the Rakdos Arcanist decks or Reanimator or something like that. The ability to exile the opponent's graveyard as one of the 3 modes on this is fantastic. And because we're running 4 Collected Company as well, we can trigger this at instant speed. So say for example we're playing against an Is It Phoenix deck. If they get a bunch of Phoenixes in the grave and they're about to bring them back, if we have company, we can fire this off before the Phoenixes come back. And if we get lucky and hit Callous Bloodmage, we can exile the opponent's graveyard at instant speed, which is so powerful. You know, similarly, we can shut off Delirium at instant speed if the opponent's attacking with a 3/3 Dragon's Rage Channeler. So just the ability to have graveyard hate on a body when we need it is so powerful. And then the third ability, draw a card and lose a life. If we don't need to create a 1/1 or exile the graveyard, this card just always replaces itself, which is a great baseline to have. And like I said as well, if we're comboing off with Citadel and we play Bloodmage and we see that the next card is a land, we can just put that into hand. So Bloodmage synergizes really well with the deck, and the fact that we can have flexible graveyard hate on this card as well is really nice. Then next up, 4 copies of Woe Strider, one of the most important cards in the deck. You know, like I explained earlier, the ability to scry away lands when we're comboing off with the Strider is really nice. Very nice in conjunction with Mayhem Devil as well. We can often use that to finish off the opponent if we can get them down to a low life total and we have a bunch of creatures with Woe Strider and Mayhem Devil. We can just sacrifice all of our creatures, get a bunch of Mayhem Devil triggers and finish off the opponent. This scry is really nice at just making sure that we don't have mana issues. You know, we can dig for lands if we need them, scry them away if we don't. Helps us dig for our payoffs as well. And the ability to escape this gives us a lot of ways to grind in the late game as well. You know, bring this back as a 5/4, which is, you know, pretty decent stats compared to a lot of the creatures in the format. Is great. It just keeps us giving us more options to do with stuff in the late game. Pairs nicely with Priest of Forgotten Gods as well. You know, we can activate the Priest, get the 2 black mana, sacrifice the Strider, and then bring it back with its escape cost if we have enough cards in the graveyard. So Strider is a really important card in the deck for basically all of our game plans. And then finally, Mayhem Devil is basically the payoff for our sacrifice and our combo game plans, so is arguably the most important card in the deck. And yeah, just fantastic against both the creature decks, and is also really important for us to be able to combo off with the Citadel as well. And then Collected Company, another great payoff in the deck. We can ramp into it as early as turn 2 with Phyrexian Tower, and you know, it just helps set up our synergies for our sacrifice game plan, but it's also great to hit off the Citadel as well. It's very easy to put a bunch of creatures into play, which helps add up for our 10 non-land permanents, and also helps us to dig for our Innkeeper or Strider to help us keep comboing off. So Citadel and Company together work really nicely, and Company also just gives us another payoff for all of our ramp as well. Then the mana base, 22 lands, you know, slightly lower land count than most decks, but we want to run a slightly lower land count because of Citadel. You know, if we up the number of lands in the deck, the chances that we brick when we're comboing off go up pretty high. And also, since we have so many ways to ramp, we can afford to run a slightly lower land count. And between Strider and Callous Bloodmage and Priest all drawing or scrying, we can pretty consistently get to the lands when we need them anyway. Phyrexian Tower is a land that's absolutely fantastic in Citadel, obviously, and Sacrifice Shells, but we're only running 1 copy because, first of all, we're a 3-colour deck, and Phyrexian Tower doesn't produce any coloured mana until you already have a creature in play. Second of all, it's legendary, so if you draw 2, it's really bad, and considering we're running a pretty low land count deck, that can basically just mean that we can't curve out at all. So I think 1 copy is nice, but there's severe diminishing returns on running more than 1. The only other notable thing about the mana base here really is that we're not running many shock lands. You know, we're only running 2 Blood Crypt and 4 Overgrown Tomb, and the reason for that is just that we don't want to be losing life to our lands because we want to conserve it for Citadel when we're comboing off. So that's the main deck. Really happy with how it's been working. The only card that I've been considering running is potentially Ravenous Squirrel over the Shambling Ghast. So I'll quickly bring that one up so you can see it. So Ravenous Squirrel is a card that's commonly run in a lot of the other sacrifice shells. And the great thing about Squirrel here is that if we are left in a situation where the opponent's removal is lined up well against us, Squirrel provides us a good way to refuel. You know, we often have food tokens and treasure tokens lying around from our Goose, Shambling Ghast and Innkeeper. So if we do end up in one of those situations, as a 1-mana card, just being able to sacrifice those foods or treasures enable us to draw a card and hopefully get back into the game. And also, if we don't have to sacrifice the Squirrel and we have enough bodies to sacrifice to Priest or Strider, we can make this get really big as well. But I tend to prefer Shambling Ghast right now because Shambling Ghast is much more proactive and it works well when we're not behind, whereas Squirrel is only good when we are behind. So I'm not quite sure about it, but I could potentially see swapping out Shambling Ghast for Squirrel. But other than that, I'm really happy with the main deck and it's been working really nicely. Now onto the sideboard. As before, there's going to be a text sideboard guide down in the description, and I'll put how I sideboard in every single matchup. So you can just refer to that while you're playing if you want. I'll leave a link to that down below. But I'm going to quickly just go through the sideboard and explain, give a bit of background of why the cards are here. So starting off with 4 copies of Noxious Grasp. This is here mainly as a consideration to Yasharn. So Yasharn is a card that's commonly run in the white-green sideboards, and it really shuts down the vast majority of our deck. So first of all, this shuts down all of our sacrifice synergies, but in addition to that, it also shuts off the ability for us to play cards off the Citadel because it shuts off paying life as well as sacrificing abilities, and we obviously have to pay life to play stuff off the Citadel. So Yasharn is a real problem, and I've seen an uptick of this being played in the white-green sideboards. White-green humans and Selesnya Heliod Life Gain Company are both very popular decks right now, and they're both pretty consistently running Yasharn in the sideboard. So I feel it's kind of necessary to run 4 Grasp so that we always have an answer to be able to kill it. It's also typically better than a lot of the other removal spells at this slot that we can run, because when we're comboing off with Citadel, it only costs us 1 mana to play, whereas a lot of the other cards that you can run, like Murderous Rider, can cost us a lot more. Another typical target for the Grasp that we want to have an answer to is Serra's Emissary. So this is a card that's typically run as the payoff for the creativity decks, and if they name creature, we can kill them with Citadel activations, but it is quite difficult for us to win from that point, so having Grasp as another way to kill Serra's Emissary is nice. And even outside of that, there's a lot of white-green decks in the format right now, whether that's white-green humans, the Selesnya Heliod Company deck like I mentioned, and there's also a lot of green decks as well. There's mono-green elves, mono-green Stumpy, and it can kill stuff like Teferi as well. This can kill planeswalkers. So outside of Yasharn and Serra's Emissary, there are quite a lot of decks where this is great as well. But because of the popularity of Yasharn and because of how much it shuts off the deck, I think it is really important to be running 4 copies of this. Then we've got 3 copies of Midnight Reaper. This is here mainly for the control matchups. Now before the banning of Memory Lapse, a lot of the control decks were running Anger of the Gods as their sweeper of choice, which made Midnight Reaper quite a poor choice because it exiled when it killed them. But thankfully now almost all of the control decks are running non-exiling sweepers like Wrath of God, Day of Judgment. The 5-color Niv deck is running Deafening Clarion, so I think Midnight Reaper is a fantastic choice again against the control decks. We can proc it with our own sacrifice abilities. We can sacrifice stuff to Woe Strider to trigger it, and it also just gives us generally good protection against single target removal and sweepers, keeps generating card advantage, so it's just fantastic against control. I'm running this over other stuff that I could run like Planeswalkers, because one of my aims with this sideboard is that we can always keep Collected Company in post-sideboard, and we need to keep the number of creatures fairly high. So we're running Midnight Reaper over any of the other non-creature options because I want Company to be relevant in every matchup, basically. Then we've got 3 copies of Outland Liberator. Similar to Noxious Grasp, this is a real consideration for Grafdigger's Cage. I'll quickly bring that up for those of you who don't know what it is. So Grafdigger's Cage is another card that really shuts down a lot of the deck. So not only does it shut off Collected Company, but it also shuts off Citadel and the escape on Woe Strider. So as you can see, it shuts off the most powerful parts of our deck. So having an answer to that is really important, and I have seen a real uptick of Grafdigger's Cage recently because of the popularity of both the Cat Oven decks and the Collected Company decks. So if Grafdigger's Cage becomes much more popular, I could potentially see going up to 4 copies of Outland Liberator in the sideboard, probably cutting Witch's Vengeance for the 4th copy. But even outside of Grafdigger's Cage, this is fantastic against both Affinity and the green-white Enchantress decks. It's fantastic against the other sacrifice decks that are running Cat Oven and Trail of Crumbs as well. And on top of that, it's also really good against Control. Control is typically a deck that can run Grafdigger's Cage, but they also run stuff like Portable Hole, Shark Typhoon, and also generally Outland Liberator is great against them because we can play this on turn 2, and typically they're going to want to hold that mana and then pass back to your turn, at which point this flips into the Frenzied Trap Breaker, which gets in for 3 damage every turn and just gets to kill artifacts and enchantments for free. So Liberator, very important for Grafdigger's Cage, but also relevant in any matchup that runs artifacts and enchantments as well. Then we've got 1 copy of Witch's Vengeance, just very good against tribal decks, you know, humans, merfolk, zombies, goblins, elves, all of those matchups. This is an all-star. Typically, Sacrifice is good against the creature decks, but a deck like goblins or elves, for example, that go very wide and might be able to go too wide for us to deal with all their creatures, this is just a great way to help out in those matchups. But I think this is probably the most expendable card in the sideboard, so like I say, if Grafdigger's Cage becomes more popular, I could see going up to 4 Liberator instead of the Witch's Vengeance. Then we've got 2 copies of Bonecrusher Giant. This is just additional removal against the creature decks. And similar to Midnight Reaper, the reason that I'm running this over a non-creature option like Fatal Push, for example, is because I want Collected Company to be relevant in every matchup. And also, you know, the ability to pick up a small creature and then put a 4/3 into play that can block and get in for damage is really nice. And then finally we got 2 copies of Clothis. So in addition to the Callous Blood Mage, this just provides additional graveyard hate in matchups where we need it. It also provides a way for us to buffer our life total. You know, if we're playing against a deck like Mono Red, this is a great way for us to just keep making sure that we can gain life every turn. And it's also fantastic against Control as well, because once this is in play, you know, Control decks typically want the game to go turn 10 onwards, so if we can get this down on turn 3, it deals an incredible amount of damage over the course of a game. It's very difficult for them to interact with, and between that and Mayhem Devil and Priest activations, we can end up dealing a bunch of damage to the opponent and maybe don't even need to win through combat anymore. But yeah, Clothis, just really useful, additional graveyard hate, and just great against Control. So that's the deck. Hope you've enjoyed. If you've got any questions at all, drop me a comment down below. Now onto the gameplay. Just got a couple matches that I recorded when I was climbing the ladder, so hope you guys enjoy. Big up. Okay, sweet, here we go. Okay, so going second here. And yeah, I mean, we're a bit light on creatures, but we got company, we've got Citadel. Okay, perfect, we got creature now. Yeah, we got Priest to ramp into it, we got Phyrexian Tower, which will help us ramp here a bit as well. Okay, so we're against the Selesnya life gain deck. So I think I'll offer the trade here. Oh wow, they block. Okay, so we get to pick off the Trelisara here with the Shambling Ghast. I mean, that makes me think they probably have a second one, or either that or they didn't know what Shambling Ghast does, but makes me think they might have a second one. Definitely play the Priest here. We pretty much always want to play Priest on turn 2 if we can, just because we want to be able to activate it as soon as possible. Okay, so they go Innkeeper. Yeah, okay, so they did have the second Trelisara. Not a huge shock after they traded that first one off in combat. Okay, so I think the play here is just play Blood Mage and make a 1/1, and then we can activate Priest. To be honest, we don't really mind what they sacrifice here. You know, if they sacrifice the Trelisara, that's great because their biggest threat's gone, and if they sacrifice the Innkeeper, that is one of their life gain enablers dead as well, which takes them off the combo and makes, you know, all of their other Heliod's, Trelisaras and Voice of the Blessed weaker. So yeah, I think we have to activate here, really. We don't have anything to play off the 2 black mana unless we draw like a Priest here, but I think that's fine. We're kind of happy with whatever they sack here, so Okay, leaves the Triceratops, that's not a big surprise really. And just pass the turn. And now we've got company that we can play next turn. Oh, okay. I was going to say, playing company with priest on the field is great, because if we hit multiple good things to sack, it can completely pick apart the opponent's board. So I think the play here is just play the Slitherboard pathway and just company during the opponent's turn. Now we could be vulnerable to company into the combo here, but that's kind of a worst case scenario, so I think we'll company here. You know, there's a chance we can ambush this innkeeper in combat. Nice. That's a pretty good hit, not gonna lie. Okay, so they do have company of their own. I mean, thankfully we can kill the innkeeper now. If they do hit Scurry Oak Heliod, we can sack the Mayhem Devil. Okay, they do hit the Heliod. They hit Augur of Autumn as well. Huh, they put the counter on the innkeeper. I mean, that seems like a bit of a waste, because we can just block that with the devil, and we'll happily take the 2 here. We're not going to sack the goat here. I think I'd rather save that for next turn. And now we can go land into Citadel, but that seems pretty unnecessarily risky, you know, in case we brick and hit lands or something. So I think we'll go Innkeeper, make a treasure, then play Blood Mage, and then we have the treasure to guarantee Citadel next turn. Oh, okay. I was going to say, and we have Innkeeper and Strider in play, which sets us up easier there. So sideboarding, 4 Grasp and 2 Bone Crusher. Grasp hits basically everything in their deck, and Bone Crusher is great at picking off the small life gain enablers. Shambling Ghost and Blood Mage are both generically great cards to have in the main deck, and they are good in certain matchups. You know, Blood Mage is great, especially when we need chump blockers or graveyard hate, but they're also nice in that they're pretty easy cuts when they're not specifically good in matchups as well. So, cut those, bring in the Grasp, bring in the Bone Crushers, and we got decent removal here. Also, since they're green-white, they're obviously going to have access to Yasharn, so we need to maximise our chance of drawing an answer to that. So this hand looks great. You know, we've got Ramp, we've got Bone Crusher on turn 2 if we need to pick something off, and if not, we can just get Priest down, which we can start activating to break apart their board. No turn 1 play is great to see from our side. So we'll play Llanowar Elves. Company is also a great draw there, obviously. Let's see what they play here. Ambitious Farmhand. Okay, that's good to see, because it means we can get down our Priest. We don't need to Bone Crusher that at all. That's one of their least threatening cards. So we'll shock in the Blood Crypt and just play Priest here. You know, even though we drew Woe Strider and its better mana efficiency, we generally always want to get Priest into play first so that we have the option to activate it. Rest in Peace. I mean, the great thing about this build compared to most of the other sacrifice decks is that Rest in Peace does basically nothing against us. The only thing it stops is the Strider escape. So we'll company. That was a bit of a whiff. That kind of sucks. But I think we probably should activate the Priest here. You know, even though Ambitious Farmhand isn't that threatening, if we don't activate Priest here and they do play something threatening, then when we do activate the Priest, they'll just sack the Farmhand instead. You know, we don't have Mayhem Devil to force them to sack the big creature, so I think we have to activate Priest now, and unfortunately I think we have to sack the Strider, even though they have Rest in Peace in play, because we want guarantee company next turn, and in case we draw Citadel or something, we want the Llanowar Elves to ramp us into that, so I mean, you know, that wasn't... Ah, okay, they do have Yasharn. So we're basically either trying to trick them into attacking into company here, but it's going to be so obvious that we have it, or we just need to draw Noxious Grass. But I think the best play is to just pass here, hope they get greedy and attack in with Yasharn. I don't think they will. Oh, they do? Okay, I mean, let's hope to ambush them here then. Yikes, okay, that kind of sucks. But I mean, to be fair, thinking about it, I don't think, you know, they must have known we had company there, so if they're attacking with Yasharn, it makes me think they might have a second one, which is not great. We'll see though. Okay, so I think we'll just run out the Woe Strider here, and then hold up Bone Crusher, but I mean, even if they have a second one, they're not really incentivized to attack here because we have blockers to kill the Ishan, so... Apparition, okay. I mean, that might change things if they take the Woe Strider here. This might incentivize them to attack with Yasharn again, because we don't have ways to block it now. So we can, if they do attack, yeah, sweet, so we can kill the Apparition, get a 3-3, and then double block the Yasharn here. But, I mean, I still don't think they would have attacked last turn if they didn't have a second Yasharn, so I'm not holding my breath here that this will work out well for us. I think we're still kind of relying on the Grasp, or did we get away with it? No, okay. So yeah, back to looking for Grasp. We'll activate the Priest here while we can. Sack the Goat and the Goose to pick off the Innkeeper, which is nice because if they draw the combo now, they can't win with it. Or well, they need to find another life gain enabler basically. We'll activate the food before Yasharn comes down while we have the mana. And so yeah, this game is basically just coming down to now whether we can find our Noxious Grasp or not. Or whether we can trick them into attacking again, but I don't think... I don't think they will. So we'll commit everything to the board. There's nothing they have that can really punish us for doing this. Just try and set up our board well enough that if we do draw the Noxious Grasp, we can have a really big turn. Okay, so they got company. If they have the combo, they just win here. Okay, thankfully they didn't hit the combo, but they're also building up a fairly sizable board now. But I'm still pretty confident if we can find a Grasp within the next few turns, we're in a good spot. Okay, they get Giant Killer, so that can kill our Bone Crusher Giant, which, it doesn't really change all that much. Okay, Devil's a nice draw. Wow, as in, it will be good if we can kill this Yasharn. But yeah, I think this matchup, well, this situation shows why it's really important to have 4 Grasp in the sideboard, because Yasharn really does slow our deck down to a halt. It basically just puts our whole deck on hold until we can find an answer to it. So they do Giant Kill the Bone Crusher. Still don't really have good attacks though, so... So we'll run out the Innkeeper here. But I mean, as the opponent builds up a board, even if we find the Grasp, I think it could be hard to pick apart what they've got. But I mean, I still think we've got a chance. We just need to draw. Just need to draw the Grasp. Okay, run out the Gilded Geese. And, I don't think there's any advantage to holding on to this stuff now. We might as well play our stuff out before they hit Trelisara or Voice of the Blessed. Oh, okay, that's bad. Because that shuts off all of our Mayhem Devil triggers and makes us pay 1 for every time we target one of their things. So, I mean, I think we're pretty unlikely to win the game, but I don't think it's worth conceding just yet. If we still have 4 Grasp in the deck, and we still have a sizable board, so there's still a chance. Okay, there's the Trelisara. So now, us playing our stuff out, we have to think about whether it's worth it now. Otherwise, they just get extra scries, which will get them close to the combo. Okay, so they top 1. So that means if we draw a creature, I'm happy to play it, because even though they get counters on the Trelisara, since they've already topped 1, they're not really going to get any extra scries. So, yeah, even though they get 2 counters on the Trelisara, I'm happy to run out here while they've already topped. I'm wondering why they're not playing the Giant Killer, though. I don't think there's really much advantage of keeping that in exile. So let's see what they topped. Is it a Heliod? If they have the combo, we obviously just scoop straight away, but... Okay, it's an Apparition. Takes out the Devil. So, yeah, I mean, things are looking even worse now, because if we Grasp here, we don't even have Devil to... I guess Devil didn't really do anything in the face of Valkmira anyway, but... Yeah, this isn't looking great. Come on, Grasp. Okay, there's a replacement Devil. And I think they topped, so I'm not too worried about running it out now, because they already topped off the Trelisara, I think. Let's see. What did they top? Okay, there's the Heliod, so they've got the combo. So yeah, I think that game highlights why it's really important to be running 4 Grasp in this matchup. Just didn't happen to draw it that game. And Grasp is just fantastic against this deck in general, because even if we don't need to kill Yashan, you know, if we need to kill a big Voice of the Blessed, we can. If we need to kill Scurry Oak or one of the life gain enablers to stop the combo, we can. This hand's great. You know, we've got Ramp, we've got 2 payoffs and the Grasp already, so yeah, this hand is looking good. Sweet, so we get the turn 1 Goose off. See what the opponent leads on here. Okay, they got the Soul Wars in. So we'll just run a land out and pass here. We can keep Grasp off if we feel we need to kill anything, but if we don't, we can just make a food, which is nice because it'll allow us to ramp into Company and still have a food around to ramp into Citadel a couple of turns later. Okay, that changes things a bit. I think we probably want to play the Priest out before the Company here, because, like I said, getting Priest down as early as possible against creature decks is really important, so we have the opportunity to activate it if we need. And this also enables us to play Grasp off the Goose if we need to as well. So they play an Innkeeper. Anything else? No, okay, sweet. So we'll play a land and play Company here. Okay, that's a pretty good hit. So we definitely want to kill off the Soul Warden here, I think. And then we can activate Priest to kill the Innkeeper, and then they're out of life gain enablers. But actually, no, I think it's... Actually, no, that would be really stupid. I think we're better off waiting until next turn. And then we can... you know, just in case they have Company here, or they have Scurry Oak or Heliod or whatever, I think we're better off waiting, then we can ramp into Citadel if we need. Because I think the way we lose this, yeah, they obviously do have Company here. The way we lose this is if we activate Priest and then they have Company and they hit the combo. So we need to keep the Priest activation available here. Because if we activate Priest and we target the Innkeeper with our Mayhem Devil triggers, and then they respond with Company and hit Heliod Scurry Oak, that's how we throw the game. Thankfully we can cast the Citadel here without activating the Priest, so we can keep the Priest activation open, but I think we're probably better off, you know, we have to activate the Goose to play the Citadel here anyway, so I think we're better off activating that first, pinging down the Innkeeper, which will hopefully bait them out to play their Company, and then we have both the Grasp and the Priest activation to deal with whatever they get off the Company, and then we can play the Citadel after that. So this just shuts off, you know, all of the ways the opponent has to win off the Company here. Okay, so they target the Devil, so we'll activate the Priest in response here. We'll sack the Devil and the Goose, because we want the Innkeeper around for the Citadel. And we'll target the Scurry Oak with the Mayhem Devil triggers before it becomes a 2-3 from the Evolve. They presumably sack the Innkeeper here. Okay, I mean that was probably a mistake because the Innkeeper's dying anyway from the Mayhem Devil trigger, but... Sweet, so now the great thing is we can play Citadel here, and also if we hit an untapped land off the top we can play Strider, and then we have Strider and Innkeeper in play, which is, you know, in almost all situations good enough to win the game, and we have Devil already, so we'll put Strider into play. I think since we have enough creatures in play, we can scry this Citadel to the bottom rather than paying 6 for it. So, and also we need to get to the opponent to below 20 so that we can kill just with the one Devil here. Okay, sweet. I hit another land, so we'll sack the Priest to scry that land to the bottom. Deal 1 to the opponent. Okay, sweet. I'm pretty confident we've got it here. Okay, Noxious Grasp we can play and kill our Goose. But, I mean, I think we're better off just scrying it to the bottom. Because we get an extra ping off the Mayhem Devil. And we don't have to pay a life either. Okay, another land. We'll scry that. I mean, we could lose if we just hit a million lands in a row, but that's pretty unlikely. Okay, sweet. And Goose, is that 10? I think that might be 10 permanents, so yeah, sweet, we've got enough to win now. Perfect. Boom. So sack our 10 permanents, get the 10 Mayhem Devil triggers, just ping the opponent 10 times. And that should be the game. Boom. Sweet, there we go. So yeah, that feels like a pretty good matchup. Okay, sweet, going second here. Yeah, this looks pretty nice. We got turn 1 Goose, got a lot of nice options for turn 2. Okay, so white-green pathway into Sentinel, so we're definitely against the humans deck, I'd imagine, here. Run out the Goose. Okay, so they got Sentinel into Thalia. That's a bit annoying when we've got Citadel in hand, but not the end of the world. I think the right play here is probably just land and then play Mayhem Devil, which makes their attacks a lot worse. You know, they can't really attack in. Does make us kind of vulnerable to Brutal Cathar and Apparition, but I think it's still the best play here. Okay, Aspirant, so they can put a counter on Thalia and start attacking. Yeah. But at least we're preventing the Sentinel getting in. Okay, so got a few options here. I think the best option is probably playing the Blood Mage here. Because if we play Blood Mage here, probably make the 1/1 as well. And then next turn when we have 4 mana, we can play Innkeeper and activate Goose. And that enables us to play Citadel the following turn, even with Thalia on the field. We'll definitely make a 1/1 here because, you know, it's just an additional chump blocker. We need to save our... Since Citadel is our plan here, we want to preserve our life total as much as we can. And also having more chump blockers incentivizes them to attack with less stuff as well, which is what we want. So they'll probably attack with the Thalia here. And to be honest, I think we'll probably let it through this time, because I assume they'll keep putting counters on the Thalia, and so I would rather block with the 1/1 next turn when it's a 5/4. So yeah, we'll play the land on green here, play the Innkeeper, and then make a food at the end of next turn, and then just go land Citadel and just hope for the best, I think is the best plan here. Now obviously that's a bit of a nightmare if we do brick, but I think that's just the the best path to victory here. So let's see what the opponent's got. Okay, Brutal Cathar, so I assume they're taking the Mayhem Devil here. We could activate the treasure in response to kill the Aspirant, but I think we need that treasure for Citadel. So I think we just have to let this happen. And then I assume they'll put a counter on the Thalia here. Okay, they put it on the Aspirant. I assume they can't attack with that because we've got the Blood Mage. So now we'll attack, we'll gain a life, we'll go up to 14. And then, you know, fingers crossed this is enough. Okay, another Citadel's a pretty bad draw here. So I think we just got a Citadel and hope that we don't brick. You know, even if we get a couple of things into play, that should be good enough to stabilise, hopefully. But if we just have land on top, that'll be really bad. So they get 2 Sentinel triggers here, but there's nothing we can do about that. Okay, that's a great start. Oh wow, perfect. Now we've got Strider plus Innkeeper. I think we are in a good position to win here. So we can't play the Company because of Thalia, so I think we just scry that to the bottom, and now we can start targeting the Brutal Cathar with Mayhem Devil triggers, and we can get back another Mayhem Devil. Okay, another Innkeeper, that's fantastic. Oh wow. And a Woe Strider. So I think that might already be 10 permanents. We've just won the game here then, I think. Yeah, sweet. So we obviously got quite lucky off that Citadel, but I still think that was the right play. You know, even if we'd just hit a couple of things off that, that would have hopefully been enough to stabilise and then win with Citadel on the following turn. So yeah, just ping down the opponent, take down game 1 here. That's pretty good. So I'm just trying to think about sideboarding here. How many Citadels we want to keep in the face of Thalia. So we definitely want Noxious Grasp here, because I assume they'll have Yasharn. Bone Crusher is great against all their small creatures, and Witch's Vengeance is an all-star here as well. Not sure if we want Liberator. You know, they do sometimes run Portable Hold post-sideboard, but I don't think it's that important. Like the last match, I think we'll cut Blood Mage and Ghast, and we'll definitely be trimming at least one Citadel here. Maybe we should... I'm not sure, maybe we should be cutting more Citadels and keeping in Blood Mages. You know, leaning more into the sacrifice game plan, because that is typically good against the humans decks and not relying as much on the Citadel, but maybe it's just how we won that last game making me think that we might want more Citadels. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's potentially wrong. I could see cutting some Citadels for Ghasts or Blood Mage, but it's close. And if they don't have Thalia, I still think Citadel's a good option here. Relatively, anyway. Okay, so this is pretty decent. We got Llanowar Elves into turn 2 Strider, we've got Grasp, Witch's Vengeance and Citadel, so pretty good options here. Especially nice to have that one of Witch's Vengeance going second against humans as well. Okay, so they must have just drawn that. Then we'll play Strider on 2 here. And Strider is just fantastic against these aggressive decks here, because we want to scry this goat anyway to try and hit a land. And so we can just chump block the bodyguard with the goat token and sack it, just to get a free block in. And I think, yeah, we're just digging for lands here, because we have, you know, we have removal and Citadel, so as long as we can hit lands, we've got Prosperous Innkeeper and Llanowar Elves to hopefully help us hit Citadel as well, so I think we're just looking for lands. So we'll sack the goat token here, stop the damage getting in, which is especially important because we already have the Citadel in hand. Just waiting on the opponent here. Huh, Jamoka's command, okay. So I think we'll just sacrifice the Llanowar Elves to get an extra scry here. That is a bit annoying because it takes us off Citadel, you know, a turn earlier. So we don't want Grasp. Company though, huh. Yeah, I think, you know, while we are looking for lands, I think Company is probably too good in this situation, especially now that we've lost the Llanowar Elves. We're a little bit further away from Citadel, so I think we'll just cast the Innkeeper here. Even though we don't have the 4th land, we do have the treasure off the Innkeeper here, which gives us the 4th mana for the Company. And we're not going to be blocking with the Strider, so we might as well just attack with it here. Now let's see what the opponent's got here. Company, okay. Okay, Hamlet, Vanguard and Augur of Autumn. So I think we're kind of priced into playing Witch's Vengeance here. An untapped Black Source would be great. Okay, we didn't draw that. I still think we have to Witch's Vengeance here though. You know, if we don't kill, you know, it's really lucky for us that that was a 3/3 that we can kill with the Vengeance. And if we don't kill all of their stuff here and they have a Thalia's Lieutenant in hand, they can get all of these out of reach of our removal pretty quickly, so Witch's Vengeance coming in clutch there. Oh yikes, another Company. Okay, wow, we got lucky there. I mean, Catilda does give them a lot of mana, but we're very happy to take that. And Llanowar Elves, even though we missed on a land, Llanowar Elves and Innkeeper is not bad. Okay, we just missed sequence there. I was just playing too quickly. That was a mistake. I should have obviously played the Innkeeper first there. to gain an extra life, but I was, yeah, just playing too quickly. Okay, so they did have the Lieutenant, so I'm really glad we had that Witch's Vengeance, or this game would have been a lot more difficult. Another Lieutenant, okay. I got something else to play off Catilda here. Okay, Giant Killer. So these Lieutenants are getting pretty big pretty quickly, which is quite scary, but we've still got company. I think, you know, if we fire it off main phase, it does make us more vulnerable to Apparition and Cathar, but if we hit, you know, if we hit Treasure Makers or something like that, or, okay, wow, that's a great hit. So yeah, I think we want Devil and Priest here. And then we're pretty well set up for next turn, actually. We can pick apart their board pretty easily here. Okay, they do have Yasharn. Thankfully, we've had this Noxious Grasp in our hand since turn 1. And generally in these white-green matchups, you know, unless you have to use the Grasp, you're much better off saving it for Yasharn. Another Lieutenant, okay. So they do have a pretty big board here. But with Priest and Devil and Grasp to deal with the Yasharn, I feel we should be able to pick it apart pretty easily, especially because they're completely out of cards now. That's all they have. We do need to be very wary of this Catilda though. We need to start killing as many creatures as we can, because they can start putting counters on them starting next turn. So they attack with the Lieutenant. We'll just take the 6 damage here. Another Grasp. Okay, that's actually a pretty good draw here, I think. So we'll kill off the Yasharn first, obviously. And then I think we're going to stump the Giant Killer here. And then we can activate the Priest and use the Devil triggers to kill off the Giant Killer and the 1/1 Lieutenant. And then we can cast the second Noxious Grasp off the mana from Priest to kill the Catilda. And then I think that might be lethal damage, actually. So yeah, we'll ping down Giant Killer and the Lieutenant. Presumably they'll just sacrifice the 4/4 Lieutenant here, because they will be facing lethal damage after they sack this, whatever they sack. Yeah, so they sack the Lieutenant, we put them down to 7. We can then grasp this Catilda. And that is, yeah, we've got 7 power in play. And obviously we have the Treasure and the Strider activations as well, so well over lethal damage here, which is great. So we kill the Catilda, attack him for 7. There we go, pretty clean win there, nice.